content of this channel is for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification button. And please, feel free to share the video. Thank you.
What's good, everybody? What's cracking? I'm GG, man. You tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. It is the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up with no chases, man. So shout out to y'all, man. Big up to the people in the chat, man. Salute to Aaron Peters. He says, what's good from St. Louis? What's up with you? What's up, Uncle Fire? He says, greetings, GG, in the chat. Best intro ever. Thank you, sir. Shout out to Black Seminole, J. Cleveland Green II. He's in here. I'm going to give him a bomb right now. I'm giving him a bomb right now. I know he likes it, so. And shout out to D. Scott, man. Peace out to I'm Sublime, Heru Aten Patah. Shout out to all y'all out there in the chat. But before I get things started, man, I want to give a shout out to all of the supporters of the Green Gorilla channel. People who help me keep things afloat here. So let me go ahead and take care of that process now. Shout out to Tahuti, Gold Professor, Brotherly Love, Lee Ways, Night Raven, DF, Aaron Peters, Travis, Zanko, and Barnolas. Big up to them, man. Big up to J. Cleveland Green. Again, hiphop.ca TV, Dar, Lord Hamal, Michael Ross, Vincent Lindsay, Michael Pierce, Beautiful Trauma, and Quiz the Poet. Big up to y'all, man. Big up. Big up to Black Quizzard ADOS, Jazz Tech, Shadow Observer, Sugar T, Artisan MC, Big Said, Nasiana, Kyle J. Sura, Kareem, Troy Warren, and Black Swerve 404. Big up. Big up to Jeff R., Mrs. KP Bailey, Cutting Up with the Jones, Ricky Dawson, Alan Wiley, The Face, Mantis on Break, Electrician 480, Life of Commerce, Apex Prowler, and Julius Ferguson. Big up. Big up to Truth 7360, Herbert Lewis, D. Scott, Marvin Evans, A. Wilson's Ghost, Timothy Blewett, Jeffrey Speed, Marvin Battle Jr., Mark Holt, John J., and the IDP Expressions. Big up. Big up to Afro Troop TV, Adam, BGS Ivmore, Ignatz Mouse, Brian Peaks, Papa Didas, Scott Haywood, Blacku Uru Strikes, Dr. Tree, Leroy Honeycutt, Broken Blade. Big up. Big up to Supertech 77 Base X, Brian McMurray, K-Ryan S, Anthony Davis, Donnell 360, 7th Coast Dojo, Charles Rogers, Rick Ross, Sandra Jean, and Charles Gilmore. Big up. Big up to Patricia Colley, Greg, Barry Little, Mr. Valentino, Jason Hales, Black Men Being Brutally Honest, Cameron 87, Doc LaRock, Mark Swift, Odd Collard, and Donna Watts. Big up. Big up to Coach Hotep, Old Soul Chief, Mr. Blue Collar, I'm Just Jules, TD Hip Hop Media, Drew Main, Mr. Heat, Sir Anthony, MLR, Universal 178, and Rasheed Barnes. Big up. Big up to Aaron Smith, DH, Beware the Revelator, and Aaron Infinite. And I can't forget my brothers in heaven, man, in another plane. Force Windu, David Carroll, and Kevin Samuels. Big up to them. And on the Patreon side, I'd like to give a big up to Rock One, Judah Arenda, Albert C., Dr. Ben Vincent, J. Cleveland Green, I Am the Light of My Father, Waffle Weave, Lamont Latimer, William Joyner, Tyrone Hampton, Dornell Smith, Excalibur, Jason Warren, Anu 219, Pursuer Prisoner, Taz, Dragon 59, Adrian Hicks, Jay Bailey, Mr. Michi, and Asangwa. Big up to y'all, man. Thank you for supporting the Green Gorilla channel. And if you're inquiring about how you can also support the Green Gorilla channel by becoming a member, well, here's how you do it, and I'll be back with the rest of the show, man. What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. Today, I want to introduce you to my new membership program that consists of 5 levels where you can invest in the Green Gorilla channel on a monthly basis and receive level-specific perks. Memberships are special because they improve the quality of the content of the channel and will help me to be able to keep the channel going. Now, to participate in the Green Gorilla channel membership program, all you have to do is hit the join button, which is located right next to the subscribe button on my channel page. Now, for all of my subscribers who decide not to participate in my membership program, nothing will change. The content will keep coming the way it always has. Thanks for watching, and be careful out here, people. Bless. All right, y'all, we back. You know who I am, man. I'm GG. You tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. It's the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up with no chasers. And before I even get things started, I want to give a shout out to Timothy Blewett. Appreciate the donation, sir. Appreciate that. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Give you a bomb for that. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that donation. Big up to BGS. I see he's out here. Big up to Barry Little. Big up to Chef T. Big up to Computer Geek. All the other brothers out there. Trail Bentley. Sam Nurase. Beautiful Trauma. Ignat's Mouse. Big up to y'all, man. But anyway, man, I kind of been out of the loop for a minute because, I got sick. I don't know if I had that Rona or what, but I sure felt weak, man. I felt like I did when I had that shot. So I had to take a little chill pill for a minute. But I'm back at it like a crack addict. You better tell somebody. So for the most part, today what I want to do is basically talk about, my issue with white trans women. Now, this is dangerous territory on YouTube and social media because, a lot of people from this community think that, having any critique of anything they say in and of itself is violence, constitutes violence. But my viewpoint is if you're capable of engaging in critique, then you have to be amenable to critique. You have to listen to people who dissent from your position. It just goes with the territory. It is what it is. And before I even begin, I want to say, I know that I don't speak for all black men. I don't speak for all men, all black men. I just have my own viewpoint on this issue. And I'm pretty sure that there are many black men who see things the way that I do. And this is, this is something that I just feel, like needs to be said, especially with all the controversy surrounding Dave Chappelle, Bill Burr. Recently, you had Sean King. I was watching Black Men Being Brutally Honest, his channel, Kevin. And, Sean King came out with a statement, about how Dave Chappelle ought not be joking about trans persons. And, I feel like they're fair game. They're a group in society that have the ability to be joked about. That's how I feel about it. Black people are fair game. White people are fair game. Women are fair game. Everybody's fair game when it comes to telling jokes. It just is what it is. But I'm saying this because white trans women have a lot to say about masculinity. And in many ways, they have, a more to say about it than we do. And I think that's a shame. So I want to delve into, at some point, what it is that they actually have to say about masculinity, because once they were men or boys, decided to become women, and so they should have some insight into what masculinity is to some degree, even if they discard it or reject it. But beyond that, here's my viewpoint on it, man. Especially white trans women. Many black men see your oppression as something that you choose to endure. You chose it. Why? Well, quite frankly, because they don't see your lifestyle as something that is necessary, but that is born out of choice. You chose it. You made a decision. Now, I'm sure this will be off-putting to many queer and trans persons. But the reality is that even if you feel that you do not exist in the body that was meant for you, or that you were not born with the gender or sex you would like to perform, you still have a choice. You have a choice. And you made a choice. Now, the way I see it, you can either accept the body that you were born with and the gender norms associated with your birth sex, or you can modify them to more closely express how you feel about yourself. So yes, you can defy all conventionality and insist that gender and sexuality are nothing more than constructs. Constructs that are fluid. And that anything less than everyone else's categorical acceptance of sexual and gender fluidity is nothing more than social and political oppression. Come on, man. Anything less than everyone's categorical acceptance of sex and gender fluidity is nothing more than social and political oppression. I think this is a tad bit extreme. I think it's extreme. Now, we can say what we want to say about conventions, but conventions are the glue that holds societies, entire cultures together. It makes them cohere into something that makes sense. Some conventions are just. Some conventions are unjust. Some conventions are born out of habit. And the reasons for which the habits were developed in the first place may have long been forgotten. Who knows when and why the practice of shaking hands began as a means by which to greet someone or to acknowledge a person. But we do it nonetheless, even though we don't know the reason why the practice began. Now, as trans women, as you struggle against conventions that you find unjust or that you think limit your freedom, you're going to have to be heroic enough to understand how hard it is to break habits to begin with. Even within the cases of individuals, it is almost impossible for people to break habits. But you're asking for an entire society, entire cultures to break habits. And they're more even difficult to break, or conventions that are they're more difficult to break when you come to the macro as you leave the micro. Now, to be quite frank, I don't have a problem with breaking habits or people arguing that social structures need to change. But the way you go about it is very, very important. Because if you're not careful, you can wind up creating even greater injustices than the ones you seek to eradicate. So what I'm saying here is, if people who are, reaching out to what they consider to be justice, if they're not careful, they can wind up diminishing liberty more than expanding it. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, my next point. The objective reality is that if you decide to change your body or gender performances, people will perceive it as abnormal. Because quite frankly, it is not the norm. That's the definition of what abnormal is. It's not the norm. Most people are perfectly fine with the body with which they were born and accept the gender norms associated with their born sex, even when they don't like every aspect of their born sex. And this is mostly true of all people in all societies. You're born with a body. It is what it is. And this should become clear when you reflect on your body. For example, people who are born short, they might feel like they should have been born tall. They got the short end of the stick. No pun intended. They might feel like they should have been born tall. People who are unattractive or who are born with some sort of physical deformity might feel as if the luck of the draw has been unfair to them. Now we know taller people tend to be respected more, taken more seriously, have better access to dating and mating, and often get hired more than people who are noticeably shorter. In the case of short people, there is little next to nothing they can do to extend their height. They just have to live with their innate stature. Either that or buy a set of heels or stand on their toes. What alternative is there for them? Also, we usually don't think it's necessary to adjust societal norms for people who are short. We usually think that it's something they have to just deal with, for better or for worse. Now, in the case of people who are born ugly, there's plastic surgery and cosmetics. And we also know that people who are more attractive usually enjoy the same benefits that tall people do. But even in this case, we think that people who obsess over their looks and appearance are superficial and that they can go overboard in transforming their bodies, which puts them at great risk in a quest to attain beauty or to achieve a superficial look. I mean, we're often critical of people who get breast or butt implants or calf or chest implants. And we don't fully subsidize them with medical insurance, and rightfully so, because having big breasts and a fat ass is not necessary for living a good and a healthy life. It's not necessary. If you're born with it, okay. Now, if you go modify it, okay, that's on you. But it should be known that such body modifications are unnecessary choices and carry a great deal of health risk. I just saw my frat brother sent me a picture of some woman whose butt implants burst. And, you know, the skin on her buttocks was gone. Imagine the horror. This woman was crying, laying belly down on a table with her butt exposed, her gluteus maximus muscles exposed because her implants burst. That's horrific. But it's a choice. And an unnecessary choice at that. Now, for people who are born with physical deformities, the matter is entirely different. Why? Because such persons have not made a choice to be born with a disability. And this is part of the reason why we actually have created medical subsidies to address their conditions, especially if their deformities create unfortunate health conditions or make them appear to be grotesque, which does, indeed diminish their quality of life. But even in this case, people who are born with deformities, they pretty much have to accept their plight and live their lives as fate would have it. And this brings us to a larger issue, or an even bigger understanding or truth that has to be acknowledged. It's a blessing to be alive. And it's a blessing to be a steward of a body in the first place, because having a body in the first place is a necessary condition for the development of any kind of happiness, virtue, success, or well-being. If you don't have one, and you're not here, there's nothing for you to reach for. It's a blessing to be alive and to be a steward of a body to begin with. But this is not necessarily so with people in the trans community. They could be born with a perfect male or female body and still think that it is not the body that they were meant to have, and seek to transform it in accordance with their personal gender preferences or desired identity. But it's not just that. Not just that. But they demand that others recognize them as real men or real women in accordance with their personal gender desires or identities. Now imagine this. Imagine a woman with fake breasts being adamant to everyone that she comes into contact with that her breasts are real breasts. Or a woman with butt implants insisting that her blown up derriere is a real derriere. Imagine it. And part of the reason why women undergo such surgeries is to make themselves more attractive to the opposite sex. And part of the reason that men are attracted to swollen up breasts and behinds is due to the fact that in primates, and we are the direct evolutionary descendants of primates like chimps and gorillas, they are seen as indicators of fertility and readiness for sexual intercourse. And I suppose this is the reason why many women, or even trans women, undergo breast and butt augmentation procedures. Not all of them do, but many of them do. So that they will appear fertile. And that's important. Appear fertile and ready for sex with cisgendered, meaning your natural gender, heterosexual men, and those who are attracted to the female form. And you have to ask a question, like, things exist in nature to serve a function. Now we can construct things that don't have any purpose beyond the purpose that we've created. But I don't think this is the case with sex and genitals and our biology at all. But that's just my viewpoint. Which brings me to my next point, because I'm digressing. Compare and contrast what I have been discussing thus far with the issue of race. But in this case, not just any race, but the black race, blackness. And not only blackness, but blackness and maleness. It is my strong view that most of us who are born black and male are perfectly fine with being so. We didn't ask to be born this way any more than any other person is asked to be born the way they are. But we are happy to have been born this way nonetheless. It's an accident of birth, but it is a happy accident. It is a blessing to be alive. Now, what we're not happy with is the social and political treatment we receive on account of being black and male. In my view, and this is just the truth, you write me if I'm wrong, but blackness in and of itself is a racial category created by Europeans to justify exploitation, marginalization, and violence towards people who they labeled as black. Those are the facts. And for the most part, black people have accepted this label, black, not on account of their internalized inferiority, but on account of their shared history and cultural memory. Now, blackness is mostly an unmistakable and easily recognizable feature of human appearance due to its connection to the African phenotype, which I consider to be a unique and beautiful phenotype, but one that has been stereotyped, demonized, and derided in order to dehumanize the black, quote unquote, black population, marking them off for exploitation. And I say mostly because some people who are black can indeed pass as white. That's a fact. I just saw something on YouTube the other day where there was this Alabamian woman whose mother was black. She looked white, but she identified as black. And she had, some phenotypic characteristics of being, black or Negroid, but her skin didn't look, like she was black, but she had black features, okay? So some black folks can pass as white. But typically, people who are born black cannot change others' perception about their blackness or negroidness or Africanness. And here's the kicker. People who are born black are not in a position to decide to become white on account that they feel that they really are white, but were born in the wrong body or possess the wrong cultural or historical legacy. You can't do it. You can't do it. And also, we argue that a black person who identifies as white while appearing unmistakably black is delusional. I don't want to go into my Bigsby voice. This is why Dave Chappelle is such a great comedian with the Black Klansman. That's why it's a joke that is genius level, because it points out the absurdity of some black folks who want to distance themselves from their blackness when the society itself is hell-bent on marking you off, not because there's something innately inferior about you, but merely to justify their exploitation, marginalization, and violence being directed towards you. Another bomb. You might get it later. In essence, being black is not a choice. Being black is not something that can be escaped through surgery or cosmetics. I've seen some people try, but they don't quite hit the mark now, do they? Blackness is culturally and inextricably connected to the African phenotype and a specific cultural and historical legacy, which, if you possess it, cannot be discarded, reshaped, or transformed. Now imagine, if you will, how the typical black man feels about a white person who was born male with no maladies or genital deformities, who we know enjoys a certain kind of artificial social status, privilege, if you will, due to the history of colonialism, slavery, and segregation. But who decides, by choice, that they really are a white female and want to be identified as such? But not only that, but because they really are white women, they are as oppressed as cisgendered heterosexual white women claim they are, and seek to smash the patriarchy and are critical of male privilege, just like many cisgendered heterosexual white women are. Imagine how absurd this appears to the average black man, especially one who thinks that the idea of white women, the largest demographic in America, are a minority group and need protection. Many of us find it absurd. That a person who was born as a white male, who is a member of a population of persons, regardless of sex, that is responsible for and possess a heritage of colonialization, slavery, genocide, segregation, lynching, brutalization, mass incarceration, and terror, now all of a sudden decides that they really are a white woman and demands, under moral authority and threat of legal punishment, mob justice and right, that everyone around them regards them as such, it is astonishing. It's astonishing. Imagine how ridiculous the proposition is to a population of men who are often on the downward mobile track, underemployed, unemployed, homeless, subjected to indiscriminate and extrajudicial police killings. Imagine how absurd this kind of politics appears to many black men who are marginalized, illiterate, and poor. But usually, the go-to argument in this case, if there's a knee-jerk reaction, they will deny the appropriateness of it, that black male knee-jerk response, by saying that white people are not the only trans people, and that black trans women are also women. Furthermore, they claim that black trans women are a population that experiences the most violence and death in the queer community, or even the black community itself. Which I don't agree with, because there's not enough of them. I've read the literature. Only 40, 50, or 60 of them die a year in relation to the thousands of niggas that's dying out here, bruh. But y'all don't hear me. It's Friday and y'all don't fuck with me for real, though. But that's the go-to argument. But my response to this argument, this claim, is this. If you are birthed as a black male, then your life, whatever form it takes after that, whether it's gay or straight or bi or trans, is one of the most despised and vulnerable kind of lives that can be lived in Western societies. It's just the goddamn facts. They came up with the idea of birthing people. I came up with the idea of being birthed as a black male. That's where I'm starting. If you were birthed as a black male, whatever form your life takes after that, whether you decide to become trans, bi, gay, straight, whatever the fuck, you are subjected to a certain kind of vulnerability. The subcategory of black trans does not provide an escape from this fate of fungibility of black maleness. It does not. And look, don't get this twisted with hatred or violence. But as they say, you can put lipstick on a pig, but it doesn't change the fact that it is nothing more than a pig wearing lipstick. Don't get it twisted. You can put panties over a penis, but in doing so, you cannot transform a phallus or a scrotum into a vagina or a uterus. Now, what you can do is surgically remove a penis and cosmetically shape it, the leftover skin and nerves of the genitalia, into something that looks and feels like a vagina. Might look exactly like one. But alas, it is not the real thing. And it cannot perform the same functions as the real things, and will never have the potentiality to perform the same functions as the real things. Now, by making this point, I am not alluding to the idea that women who can't have babies or that have physical problems with their genitalia or reproductive organs are less than women who can, or that they are worthless as persons and are not real women because they have those kind of problems. What I'm saying is that women who suffer from such problems usually have not chosen to have such problems, unfortunate as they may be. Neither am I saying that the population of women who have decided to tie their tubes, to take birth control, or to undergo hysterectomies are worthless as persons, or that they are not real women either. But what I am saying is that taking away the potentiality for reproduction from your own born sex in a deliberate manner in order to perform the sex and gender norms or constructs of another sex or gender is it's basically a matter of conscientious choice. There has no potentiality, no possibility of bearing human fruit. It won't do it. Can't do it. You can't do it. Has no possibility or potentiality of bearing human fruit. It is a choice to push the boundaries of conventional wisdom about the very nature of our species and how we reproduce, how we engage in intimate relationships and develop family life. In my view, what many of these people are doing is not asking for tolerance as much as demanding acceptance based on their own lifestyle choices and idiosyncratic desires. You wish to build new constructs of sex and gender performance on a very shaky foundation. You seek to be recognized for what larger purpose? And for what larger aim in the annals of time, space, human culture, and civilization? What are you trying to do? Now, some disclaimers. The idea that your recognition as being a woman, once having been a male, is important to you, it's understandable. Even though it's a bit strange to me. Because after all, I think that you are some strange and peculiar human beings. But you are still human beings with a right to live and pursue happiness according to your own life plans. However, the idea that somehow your recognition as being a woman ought to be more important to me than the material, social, and political conditions of my own identity group, which is black male, is ridiculous to me. This would require, or that would require me to indulge in your choice to metamorphosize yourself into something that you do not have to, when all I merely wish to do is exist. Without being dehumanized and subjected to death, derision, incarceration, and exclusion. Your desire to be recognized as a real woman so that you can participate in real women's sports is not really of the same social and political import to me as is the desire of a population of persons birthed as black males who were once enslaved to live a life without being terrorized and subjected to indiscriminate killings by state officials who regard us as beastly and inhuman. Your desire to not be dead named or to be addressed by the correct pronouns is not of the same import as being killed for existing, or having nearly 1/3 of your demographic be incarcerated for being perceived as a brute. Neither is your desire to be able to use the same bathrooms as your performed gender of the same import as racial issues to black men. Because let's face it, man, both men and women are generally restricted from using bathrooms of the opposite sex, regardless of race or class. And this is really based on matters of privacy and comfortability, which have primarily been developed in the interest of who? Get this now. Women! Who don't want men in their bathrooms? This shit is established for them. It's their issue. I really don't care about it. You want to go in the women's bathroom? Fuck it. Go do what you do. I really don't give a shit. But it's not important to me. And the bathroom issue has never been about the denial of your humanity, but really about the comfortability of cisgendered heterosexual women in relation to their own perceived safety and privacy. So it's really not the same as the separate but equal conditions that obtained in American society during segregation. It's not the same thing. It's not. And this brings me to the last thing I want to mention here, which are the words of the academician Sylvia Wynter as she addressed her colleagues in a 1994 paper entitled "No Humans Involved, an Open Letter to My Colleagues," where she states, You may have heard a radio news report which aired briefly during the days after the jury's acquittal of the policeman in the Rodney King beating case. The report stated that public officials of the judicial system of Los Angeles routinely use the acronym NHI to refer to any case involving a breach of the rights of young black males who belong to the jobless category of the inner city ghettos. Anybody care to guess what NHI means? It means no humans involved. No humans involved. No humans involved. That's why they beat us. That's why they attack us, because they imagine us to be non-human. Now you see the difference here. On the one hand, you demand to be recognized as the opposite gender of a human being. We're demanding that we be acknowledged as a fucking human being at all. Do you see the difference? This is why David Chappelle can make a joke about running around New York City with fucking high heels on because it actually makes sense. He didn't articulate it in this way, but when you think about it, it actually makes sense. He's pointing out a truth that you don't want to see because all you're worried about is your own fucking vanity and your own goddamn recognition and your own visibility. The way I see it, black men are not calling for the systematic or institutional harassment or surveillance of trans women, white, black, or anything in between, on the account that they pose a danger and a physical threat to society. But trans women do utilize a carceral feminist framework, like most feminists, which deploys the police state to protect their perceived interest, their identity group. Y'all do it. And to me, this signifies that you have no problem with deploying violence, which you decry. And the state has a monopoly on violence. You don't have a problem deploying it to protect your group interest, which I find very problematic since women also, whether they're trans or whatever the case, they're also abusers often and are sexually coercive themselves. They're not free from this. All you have to do is look at or examine the sociological literature. You'll see thousands upon thousands of women engaging in violent actions on a daily basis. But we mostly ignore it related to the categories that we've created to explain the oppression primarily of white women, who all of a sudden became minorities after the civil rights movement. We're not calling for the state to come rack you up, handcuff you, and beat you. We're not even calling for you to be erased from TV, movies, or any other media. But we are aware of the subsidies that Hollywood has been offered. I'm talking about producers and executive directors. The subsidies they've been offered in the form of tax breaks that incentivize the inclusion of your identity group in major roles or that bolster your screen time, promoting the visibility and the tokenism you so desperately crave. While at the same time, basically erasing the very movies and the TV shows that we had that basically gave us positive imagery ourselves. We're not calling for the diminishment of trans women's political rights or making attempt to thwart their career opportunities. Because we don't run the economic or the corporate institutions in this country in any way. But we have seen instances in which members of the trans community have sought to cancel certain public figures who challenge their ideals about sex and gender justice or their musings about what the reality of sex and gender is. And this is, as far as I'm concerned, in a very concrete, it's a concrete way to attempt to thwart people's career opportunities and quality of life through public censure, which is a form of force designed to generate the very outcomes that your identity group wants. You want the power to exclude, but you don't want to be excluded. You want to critique, but you don't want to be critiqued. And whether you like it or not, this is textbook oppression. Because anytime you got a group of persons who seek to disrupt individual persons or a group of persons' ability to function, flourish, and thrive when they don't share your ideals or that have the nerve to challenge them. That's oppression. Trying to stop somebody from being able to function by making them lose their careers or their jobs and subjecting them to public shame continuously. That's what oppression is. It's not like boycotting a business or an organization or attacking systems or institutions. That's different. But you're demanding that these oppressive and exploitative institutions basically discard people because they don't have the right value systems. That don't sound like justice to me. It just doesn't. It's the misuse of civil rights policy, which I think is awkward and misguided in the first place, and I've already stated my reasons in another show. Go look at it. It says I have to repeat myself, I think, or, like slowly, I have to say it slowly or something like that. And think about what civil rights law actually is. It's based on hate crimes or discrimination law, where one individual has to prove that another individual with intentionality committed an action of hate. Against a person who works in a business or something like that. But that's not what's occurring here. I want that motherfucker to be fired. I don't like him. I don't like the jokes he tells. I want him fired. There's a difference. In my viewpoint, man, that's hijacking law and policy that was actually intended to offset the effects of slavery and Jim Crow for the sake of your own vanity, visibility, and sense of self-respect. And I'm almost an hour. I didn't even intend to be an hour. I only wanted to do this for 30 minutes. So I'm not going to say very much more. I promise. There's a lot of talk about how corrupt, how toxic, how hegemonic masculinity is, and so on and so forth. I have a hard time believing that there is very much I can learn about masculinity from a former man who has rejected their own masculinity, either natural or constructed, whatever the fuck it is, by choosing to become a woman. I think I can confidently say that in some way or another, such a person's position will necessarily be critical of masculinity itself, as they have decided to reject its personification and expression in their own lives. So what can I learn about masculinity from somebody who ran as far away as they could from it? But be that as it may, I am curious to see what one person has to say about masculinity. That person is Raywin Connell. Because this individual's musings about it seems to be on the tip of every woke person's tongue. That person again, Raywin Connell. Now, if you're interested in understanding what is being said and promoted about masculinity in the academy, what's being said in blogs and social media by the progressive and woke crowd, you got something to do. It's very simple. Join me tomorrow when I read and react to the first part of the first chapter of Raywin Connell's popular book, Masculinities. You want to do that? Catch me then. Because I'm going to break it down so that you can see it for what it is. And unfortunately, because many of us are not in the academy or in these institutions, we don't have refined and very developed concepts of masculinity ourselves. Other than beating our chest and talking about getting some pussy. Well, I got some pussy, man. I'm a real man. Got me some pussy. I'm a real man. I'm a man. I got me some pussy. Look at me, boy. I'm a man. If that's not about the most shallow, the most substanceless, and vacuous concept of what fucking masculinity is about, I really don't know what is. He says it's a factor. Look here, man. It's a lot more than masculinity and manhood than getting some pussy. And if all you're doing is going off how much pussy you can get, well, goddamn it, a dog can get some pussy. A lion can get some pussy. I'm just saying, look, I'm not talking to you. I see there's one guy in there, but I'm just saying, there's more to it. A fucking gorilla. Shout out to the green gorilla. You get some pussy. So I don't see how it has anything, essentially to do with the concept of being a man. Now I understand that every, species must propagate itself so that it can exist in futurity. I get that. I understand that. But crying out loud, man, all the pussy talk, man, it's time for it to stop. Sound like a motherfucking Motown record. So I'll be on tomorrow, man. I'll probably be on between 2 and 3. I see Miguel asking what time am I going to go on. Probably between 2 and 3 o'clock. But I wanted to get this off my chest. And I wanted to, express it the way I felt like it ought to be expressed. Now, if there's any persons who want to challenge me about it, now's the time for you to step up and to do so. And I don't care if you're trans, look, I treat everybody pretty damn well. And I don't mind using, the person's preferred pronouns. I'm not an asshole. If you ask me to call you a she, I've had students ask me to call them by their preferred pronouns, and I fucking slipped up here and there. But, I'm not in the business of trying to personally offend people for no fucking reason. It's ignorant to me. But come on, man. There's some things that I will accept about what trans folks go through, but there's things that I'm not willing to consent. There's some of them who say there's no differentiation between men and women at all. And I think that that's absurd. It's fucking absurd. And that I'm privileged as a black man while they're oppressed as white women. What the fuck kind of shit is that? And they don't use themselves. The first thing they do is go to black women, black trans women, who were birthed as males. They were birthed as males. So becoming a woman doesn't prevent you from having to undergo the fucked up shit. Transforming does not enable you to escape the clutches of black maleness. You stuck with it. Ain't got no disrespect, but it is what it is. Look at this motherfucker playing with, what type of crazy shit is this? So there it is. I had somebody come in showing me a video of somebody jacking off. Like, what type of sense does that make? It's ignorant. No argument, no rebuttal, just a bunch of sick shit. A bunch of sickness. Well, anyway, I'm out, man. I'll catch y'all on the next one, man. I'll holler at y'all later, man. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Whoever wants to be there. Peace out.